The cold blackness of the Ossith fringe swallowed the salvaging crew like a predator, its vast nothingness stretching for light years in every direction. In the dim cockpit of the Seraph's Edge, Arlen Dax sat motionless, eyes narrowed on the pulsing beacon on the control panel. The hum of the ship's engines was the only sound that broke the suffocating silence. Arlen had seen too many signs of death in his life. Ghost ships, long-abandoned stations, and empty sectors. But this was something different. The signal wasn't random. It wasn't just a fluke. It had purpose. "Captain, you sure about this?" Vay's voice crackled through the comms, a slight edge of skepticism in her tone. Arlen didn't need to look at her to feel her uncertainty. She was a tech savant, quick-witted, sharp, but even she couldn't deny the strange pull this signal had. He tapped a button on his console, bringing up the wave of data again. "It's old. Too old. Earth's distress beacon went silent 4 centuries ago. But this is something else. Someone's still trying to reach out." Vay leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, her gaze narrowing. Earth. The same Earth that the Dominion glassed. The one we've all heard stories about. She shook her head, disbelief written across her face. "I thought Earth was a myth. A fairy tale told by crazy people." "Not a myth," Arlen muttered, his voice low. "A story. A legend. And maybe that legend has more truth in it than we thought." Galactic, the stoic warrior from a far-flung world, had been silent up until now. His alien eyes glinted with something unreadable, a glimmer of curiosity in the otherwise calculating expression. Finally, he spoke. "The Dominion did not simply erase Earth. They annihilated its people. A warning, not just to humanity, but to every species that dared defy them." Vay turned her head to him, lips curling in faint amusement. "Yeah, well, here's the thing about warnings, Galactic. They don't always work, especially when people decide not to listen." Arlen shot a glance at the back of the ship, where the ancient shipwrecks of forgotten battles drifted in the distance. Twisted hulk after twisted hulk. Some ships had fallen from the skies when Earth was destroyed. Others had been abandoned by their crews. The empty silence of the fringe had always felt oppressive to him, like a graveyard where no one came to mourn. He brought the ship in closer to the source of the signal. The frequency was peculiar, faint but unmistakable, and it seemed to draw closer as they traveled. Arlen's gut twisted. Something about it felt alive, as though the signal had been waiting for them. "Look at this," Vay said, tapping a holographic interface that glowed with an eerie green light. It's not just a beacon. It's calling to something. To us." Arlen stood, walking toward her console. The numbers blurred before his eyes as he scanned them quickly. "Whatever it is, it's definitely human." His voice dropped to a whisper. "But there's something more to this. Earth isn't gone. It's not what we were told." Suddenly, the ship shuddered, the console flickering. A burst of static erupted from the comms. "Warning," the voice came through, distorted but clear enough to recognize. "Containment breach. Activate. Protocol." The transmission was cut off abruptly, but the warning echoed in the stillness. It wasn't the last message of a dying world. It was a call to arms. The Seraph's Edge drifted deeper into the heart of the Ossith fringe, its sleek hull cutting through the darkness like a ghost among the wreckage. The ship's lights flickered in the void as the crew absorbed the implications of the transmission they'd just received. The warning was unmistakable. Someone, somewhere, wanted them to uncover Earth's secret. Arlen's hands tightened around the ship's controls, knuckles white. His mind raced. Containment breach. The words echoed in his head, reverberating like a bell tolling through his thoughts. Whoever or whatever was still on Earth wasn't just hiding. It was guarded. That much was certain. "Vay, what can you dig up on that signal?" Arlen asked, his voice steady despite the knot in his stomach. Vay was already a few steps ahead, her fingers dancing over the console. "I'm analyzing the frequency now, but this is strange. It's old. Really old. The encryption looks like something out of the pre-Dominion era. but it's still active, like someone planned for it to be discovered. Her eyes narrowed as her fingers hovered over a few keys. Wait, there's more. It's linked to Earth's old military satellites. Arlen's breath caught. Military satellites. Earth didn't have any left after the Dominion glassed the surface. I thought so too, Vay replied, her voice tinged with disbelief. But these? They're still broadcasting, just not in the usual network. This is direct to orbit, meaning they were never meant to be deactivated. The revelation hit Arlen like a punch to the gut. Could it be? Was Earth still hiding something? It didn't make sense. The Dominion had been thorough, dismantling everything when they obliterated the planet. Yet, here they were, following an active signal that suggested Earth was never as completely destroyed as they were taught. Calic's voice cut through the tension, low and gravely. The Dominion feared Earth's potential. They wouldn't have left anything behind unless they knew it could be a threat. Arlen exchanged a look with him, a wordless agreement between them. The Dominion's grip on the galaxy was unchallenged for centuries. Yet there was one thing they feared more than anything: a reawakening. They had spent millennia ensuring that no one would ever rise to challenge them. But Earth, with its dangerous ingenuity, was an anomaly, a planet that they couldn't erase completely. "Looks like we're going to Earth," Arlen said, the words firm but laden with a heaviness that hung in the air. "We need to see it for ourselves. I'm not risking some trap or Dominion decoy." Vay shot him a skeptical glance but nodded, already pulling up star maps. The old maps show Earth's coordinates were wiped from all known databases after the war. "We'll have to rely on my hack to get us there without getting caught." "I don't care what we have to do," Arlen said. "We're going. I need to see what's left. What's still there." Calic stood, his towering frame casting a shadow over the crew. "And if we find something that should remain buried, what then?" Arlen paused. It wasn't a question he wanted to answer, but it had to be addressed. "Then we make sure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands." For a moment, silence hung between them, thick and suffocating. The vast, empty expanse outside the ship seemed to press in closer, as though the universe itself was watching. Vay was the first to break the stillness, a small smile tugging at the corner of her lips. "Well, if we're going to stir up an ancient war, I guess we better make sure we're well equipped." Arlen's lips curled into a tight grin. "Right. Prepare for the worst. If we're walking into a war zone, we need to be ready." The ship hummed to life as Vay's fingers flew over the console, rerouting their course toward Earth's last known coordinates. Arlen sat back in his chair, watching the crew hustle into action. They were about to uncover something that had been hidden for centuries, something that could change the course of galactic history. And Arlen could feel it in his bones. Whatever they found on Earth, it would set the stage for a battle far bigger than they'd ever anticipated. The journey toward Earth's solar system felt like an eternity. Every star that passed by the Seraph's edge seemed to mock them, a reminder that time was slipping through their fingers. Yet in the vastness of the Osith fringe, their ship was a tiny, fragile thing, an uninvited guest heading toward the core of a myth that had long since been forgotten. Approaching Earth, Vay called out, her voice cutting through the tension that had settled over the crew. She was seated at the navigation console, her fingers tapping away as the final coordinates flashed across her screen. Coordinates locked, entering Earth's orbit in 15 minutes. The moment the words left her mouth, Arlen's stomach tightened. Earth. His home. Or what was left of it. A planet once teeming with life, now reduced to a barren wasteland. He'd never thought he'd be back, not after what had happened. "Any signs of Dominion patrols?" he asked, his eyes scanning the dark expanse outside the viewport. Earth had been a forbidden zone for centuries, a place that no one dared to approach without dire consequences. Vay shook her head, her fingers still flying over her console. "Nothing. It's clear for now, but that won't last. The Dominion monitors this area heavily. We need to move fast." Arlen nodded, gripping the armrests of his chair. "Prepare for approach." We get in, we get the intel, and then we leave. No second chances. Galactic, the silent Cathari warrior, was already at the weapons station, double-checking the ship's arsenal. If the Dominion comes, they will regret underestimating humanity. Arlen glanced at him, his voice quiet but full of conviction. Let's hope we don't need to find out. As the ship glided through the remnants of Earth's once glorious system, they passed the moon, now a cratered husk. Arlen's heart ached, the memories of his childhood flashing through his mind. But there was no time for sentimentality. Earth wasn't the planet he remembered. It was a ghost, and the secrets it held could change everything. Entering the atmosphere, Vae called out, her voice sharp and focused. The ship shuddered as it cut through the thinning layers of atmosphere, the warning lights blinking briefly as the ship's heat shields glowed red-hot. It wasn't long before they came upon the ruins of Earth. No great cities, no bustling capitals, just endless plains of scorched earth, and towering black spires of twisted metal where once vast human civilizations had stood. But beneath it all, something different caught their attention. There Vae pointed, her voice barely a whisper as she zoomed in on the hidden coordinates. A large cylindrical structure lay embedded deep beneath the planet's surface, shielded by a mountain range of jagged rock. The structure radiated a faint blue pulse, as if alive with energy, but it was concealed from all but the sharpest of sensors. The beacon, the source of the signal. Sanctuary Prime. That's it, Arlen muttered, his voice thick with disbelief. Earth's last hope. The ship descended, passing over the barren plains. The sight of the broken landscape left Arlen with a strange feeling of loss, but he quickly pushed it aside. The true purpose of their mission was within reach. They activated the docking sequence as the massive entrance to Sanctuary Prime appeared, hidden in plain sight under the ravaged Earth. The door, dark and sleek, slowly began to open, revealing a tunnel leading deep into the heart of the planet. The crew exchanged tense glances, knowing that beyond this threshold lay humanity's final secret. "Prepare yourselves," Arlen said, his voice calm but firm. "Once we enter, there's no turning back." The Seraph's Edge landed with a soft thud, its engines humming down to a quiet purr. The once bright surface of Earth now appeared as nothing more than a forgotten graveyard, but beneath the planet's desolate surface, something far more sinister and powerful awaited. The crew was silent, the weight of their mission pressing down on them. Arlen stood first, moving toward the hatch with a sense of purpose. As the airlock doors slid open, a chill swept through the ship, the stale scent of ancient technology and decay wafting in. The temperature in the chamber was cold, but not unbearable, as if this place had been dormant for centuries, waiting for something to stir it into life again. "Vae, how's the AI coming along?" Arlen asked, his gaze already sweeping the cavernous surroundings. The structure they had landed in resembled nothing Arlen had seen before, part military installation, part lab, all hidden beneath a series of mountains and rock formations. "Getting there," Vae replied, her voice tinged with excitement and caution. "I've managed to tap into some of the encrypted systems. There's a lot of data here, almost too much. It's as if this whole place was designed to be a vault, a way to keep something locked away." "Something, or someone," Galactic added. He stepped forward, his massive frame casting a shadow over the group. The Cathari warrior's voice was low, his sharp alien eyes scanning the darkened hallway that stretched ahead. "What are they hiding?" Arlen didn't have an answer, but he felt the answer coursing through the air around them, thick with the promise of discovery or destruction. The walls of the facility were sleek, angular, almost sterile, but there was an undercurrent of something ancient about it. This wasn't a mere shelter. This was a sanctuary, a place built to preserve something precious. The further they ventured into the depths of the facility, the more Arlen felt a strange presence hanging in the air, as though the very walls were alive, watching them. It wasn't paranoia. It was an instinctual feeling that something was awakening beneath their feet, something waiting. And then they reached it. A vast chamber stretched out before them, filled with cryogenic pods, each one sealed tight with metallic hatches. Inside, figures lay frozen in deep stasis, their bodies suspended in a kind of suspended animation. Arlen's heart raced as he stepped closer to the nearest pod, his hand instinctively brushing against the cold surface. These, Lyra, the ex-biochemist turned Titan, whispered, her voice thick with awe. They're us, but different. Arlen turned to her, his voice hoarse. What do you mean? Lyra stepped forward, her eyes tracing the intricate patterns etched into the pods. These are genetically enhanced humans, made to survive, to fight. These are the last of our kind. As the crew began to realize the scale of what lay before them, a sudden hum filled the room, followed by a soft click. The pods began to depressurize one by one, releasing hissing sounds as the cryo chambers slowly powered up. Time to wake them, Arlen muttered, the words barely audible as a feeling of unease settled over him. He had known this day might come, the moment when Earth's last legacy would rise from its slumber. But now that it was here, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to unleash something far more dangerous than they had ever anticipated. The first pod slid open with a smooth hiss, and a figure emerged, tall, imposing, and eerily silent. The Titan's eyes opened slowly, glowing with a faint, unnatural light. Who awakens us? The Titan's voice was deep, resonant, and cold, echoing off the metallic walls. Arlen stepped forward, meeting the Titan's gaze. His voice was steady, but the weight of what was happening threatened to crush him. We came to find you, to find Earth's final secret. The Titan's lips curled into a faint smile, one that carried a knowing, almost predatory edge. The secret of humanity's survival and revenge. The Titan stood before them, its imposing figure radiating a sense of untamed power that seemed to distort the very air around it. The others had begun to stir now, their cryogenic pods opening one by one, releasing more of these engineered beings, warriors from a forgotten era, human in form, but far beyond normal humanity in strength, intelligence, and endurance. The first Titan's glowing eyes fixed on Arlen, scanning him with an intensity that made his skin prickle. Its voice was low and unsettling, a vibration that seemed to reverberate in the bones. You are the ones who woke us. Do you understand what that means? Arlen swallowed hard, trying to steady his breath. He could feel the weight of history crashing down on him. The Titans weren't just a relic. They were the final weapon, the ultimate soldiers engineered by Earth's military to be humanity's last stand against the Dominion. We came looking for answers, Arlen said, his voice strained but resolute. We need to know what happened to Earth, what happened to humanity. The Titan regarded him for a long moment, its expression unreadable. Then, slowly, it nodded. You seek the truth. So be it. Without another word, the Titan stepped aside, allowing the others to awaken fully. Arlen's crew watched in stunned silence as the remaining Titans, 5 in total, moved with unnerving grace, their every motion precise and deliberate. Each one of them was a perfect blend of human form and military genius, their eyes glowing with a faint bioluminescence that pulsed in sync with the beat of their hearts. You wish to know the truth. The Titan leader spoke again, its voice now carrying a deep resonance that filled the chamber. Earth was not destroyed. It was sacrificed. The words hung in the air like an incantation. Arlen's chest tightened, his heart pounding in his ears. Sacrificed. The Titan continued, its tone somber. The Dominion destroyed the cities, the capitals, the people, but Earth's true strength, its weapon, was never in its numbers. It was in us. It gestured to the other Titans, who stood tall, silent, watching the crew. We were created to be Earth's ultimate defense. When the Dominion invaded, it was not to conquer, but to prevent us from rising. They knew what we could do. So, Earth made a decision. The Titan's voice grew colder, like steel scraping against stone. Rather than risk a galaxy-wide war, humanity made the ultimate sacrifice. We were sealed away here, in Sanctuary Prime, to wait. To ensure that if the time ever came, we could return. Arlen's mind raced. The pieces were coming together in a way he hadn't expected. Earth had not been completely destroyed. No, the planet had disappeared. Its people had been hidden, preserved, sealed away in order to keep the galaxy safe. The Titans were not the failed experiment of a desperate military. They were humanity's last hope. The Dominion believed you were destroyed, Arlen said, his voice barely a whisper. But they were wrong. The Titan leader stepped closer, its gaze sharp. Yes, and now that you have awoken us, the question remains, what will you do with us? The war we were meant to prevent has already begun. As the Titan's words sank in, a low rumble began to vibrate through the walls of Sanctuary Prime. A distant, thunderous boom echoed from far beneath their feet. Something was stirring in the depths of the facility. Arlen's eyes widened. They found us, the Titan leader said, his voice now a growl. And they will not stop until we are destroyed. The walls began to shudder again. And this time, it wasn't just the vibrations of the facility. The Dominion had already begun their assault. Arlen's crew rushed to their positions, weapons in hand. The Titans, silent until now, began to move with fluidity and precision, a terrifying sight as they prepared for battle. The very air felt charged with impending violence, and Arlen could sense it. This was no longer just a search for answers. This was the beginning of something far greater. The reignited war between humanity and the Dominion was no longer a matter of myth. It was a reality, and it was about to consume everything in its path. Prepare yourselves, Arlen ordered. We're not just fighting for Earth anymore. We're fighting for the future of the entire galaxy. The rumbling beneath their feet grew louder, reverberating through the walls of Sanctuary Prime like a rising storm. The Titans, once dormant, now stood in perfect formation, their expressions cold and determined, awaiting orders. Arlen felt the weight of responsibility settle heavily on his shoulders. This wasn't just a fight for answers anymore. This was the final stand, the moment when humanity's last hope would either rise or fall. "Vi," Arlen snapped, his voice sharp with urgency. "Can you get us out of here if we need to leave? I need an escape route ready, just in case." Vi was already working, her fingers flying over the console, her eyes flicking between the various feeds. "I can rig something up, but it won't be easy. If the Dominion's forces are as close as I think they are, we'll have only minutes, maybe less, before they lock this place down." Arlen nodded, his gaze flicking back to the Titans, who stood motionless, like statues waiting for the word to move. He couldn't help but wonder what it felt like to be like them, born and bred for war, their bodies and minds honed for one purpose. Could they still be human, or had they become something else entirely? The Titan leader, the one who had spoken to them earlier, stepped forward, his eyes glowing with an unsettling intensity. "The Dominion's forces will be upon us soon. Their ships are already en route. We have no time to waste." Galactic, his Cathari senses sharp as ever, narrowed his eyes as if trying to decipher the sound of the rumble. "Their approach is subtle. They want us to know they're coming, but they won't strike until they have us cornered." Arlen's brow furrowed. They've learned from their past mistakes. They're not coming in guns blazing. They want to trap us, isolate us. Vei's voice broke through the tension. "I've got the data now. The Dominion's fleet is in a low orbit above the planet, too high for conventional weapons, but they've deployed drones into the atmosphere. They're gearing up for a surgical strike." "Drones?" Lyra asked, her brow furrowed. "What kind of drones?" Vei's fingers flew over the console, bringing up schematics. "They're biomechanical, weaponized hybrids, part machine, part organic. Think of them as advanced assassins. They're programmed for stealth, infiltration, and elimination." Arlen exhaled sharply, his mind racing. The Dominion had always been ruthless, but these were new tactics. They were evolving, adapting in ways humanity never had the chance to. The fight was going to be harder than any of them anticipated. The Titan leader's voice broke through the murmurs. "You fear them, don't you?" Arlen turned to face him. "We fear losing. But it's not just fear. We're up against an empire that has crushed civilizations for millennia. You're powerful, but they've learned how to deal with threats like you." The Titan's expression remained unreadable. "Then you have no choice but to fight. We are not the weapon you think we are. We are the legacy of a lost world. We will make sure Earth's fall was not in vain." The ground shook again, more violently this time. The rumbling wasn't just the Dominion's approach, it was them. The Titans awakening fully, their energy building, their fury surfacing. "Get ready," the Titan leader said, his voice heavy with purpose. "We fight for Earth, and we fight for all of humanity." Arlen felt the rush of adrenaline surge through his veins. His mind flashed back to the stories he'd heard as a child, the tales of Earth's strength, of the ancient warriors who once stood unchallenged, the legends of humanity's greatest heroes. For the first time in years, Arlen didn't feel like a man lost in the shadow of the Dominion. He felt like a soldier. He turned to the crew. "It's time to defend the future. We've come too far to back down now." The Titans moved into position, their immense bodies merging into the shadows of the chamber, their presence almost overwhelming. Arlen could feel the weight of their power, their readiness. For the first time since they had arrived, Arlen felt a spark of hope. This was humanity's true weapon. Suddenly, the silence of the chamber was broken by a loud crash as the first wave of Dominion drones tore through the walls, their grotesque forms slithering into the room like predatory insects. The battle had begun. The sound of shattering metal echoed through the chamber as the first Dominion drones burst into the room, their grotesque, biomechanical forms skittering across the floor like hunting spiders. Their glowing red eyes flickered with malice as they scanned the room, searching for their prey. The Titans, unfazed by the drone's terrifying appearance, immediately moved into action, their speed and strength unmatched by anything the crew had ever seen. The lead Titan, his glowing eyes burning with intensity, reached out and snapped the nearest drone in half with a single swipe. Sparks flew as the twisted machine crumpled to the ground. "They are nothing compared to what we fought before," the Titan leader said, his voice cold and calculating. "But do not underestimate them. They are the Dominion's vanguard." Arlen's heart raced as he watched the chaos unfold. The Titans were absolute forces of nature, unstoppable, unfathomably strong. Yet there were so many drones pouring into the room, their sleek, insect-like bodies advancing with relentless precision. They were a new breed of weapon, adapted for stealth and mass infiltration, programmed to overwhelm their targets. "They!" Arlen shouted, his voice cutting through the sounds of battle. "We need that escape route ready now." "I'm on it," Vey responded, her fingers flying over her console, the flashing lights from the ship's systems casting eerie shadows on her face. "I'm opening a secure breach in the lower levels of the facility. It'll give us a way out, but we're on a timer. Once the Dominion's reinforcements arrive, they'll lock down everything." Galactic, his Cathari instincts on high alert, fired his blaster, sending bursts of energy toward the drones. The shots made contact with their exoskeletal armor, causing the drones to momentarily stagger before quickly recovering and retaliating with sharp, screeching hisses. Galactic swore under his breath and shifted tactics, pulling a grenade from his belt and hurling it toward a cluster of drones. The explosion sent debris flying, but more drones poured into the room, their movements more coordinated now, as though they had learned from their initial assault. "Keep them off us," Lyra shouted, wielding a pulse rifle with precision as she aimed and fired. Each shot struck the drones with deadly accuracy, but the tide of attackers didn't seem to slow. "We need more firepower." Arlen's eyes flicked toward the Titans. They were not only fighting but fighting with purpose. Their motions were a symphony of destruction, no wasted movements, Just clean, brutal efficiency. A Titan crushed a drone's skull with its bare hands, while another used its blade-like forearm to slice through another drone's spine. Despite their power, the drones kept coming, their numbers growing exponentially. It was only a matter of time before the Titans would be overwhelmed. "This isn't going to be enough," Arlen muttered under his breath, his gaze darting between the drones and the fighting Titans. "We need something bigger." The Titan leader seemed to hear his thought. Turning to Arlen, its glowing eyes narrowed. "You have weapons on this ship. Access them. Now." Arlen hesitated, his mind racing. Weapons? The Seraph's Edge was well equipped, but their situation was dire. He turned to Vay. "Can you access the ship's arsenal from here?" Vay's fingers were already a blur on her console. "Give me a moment. I've got a direct link to the weapons system. I can override the defense protocols and unlock the payload, but it will take a few minutes to engage." Arlen didn't have a few minutes. With a determined expression, he drew his sidearm and leveled it at a group of approaching drones, unloading a clip into them. "We hold this position for as long as we can. When that payload is ready, we move fast." The Titan leader gave a single, curt nod. "We will hold." The room was filled with the sounds of battle, explosions, gunfire, the grating noise of metal clashing against metal, as Arlen and his crew fought with everything they had. The Titans were still clearing the room with terrifying efficiency, but the Dominion drones seemed endless, a constant wave crashing against them. It felt like a losing battle. Vay's voice cut through the chaos. "I've unlocked the laser barrage. Give me the signal, and we'll light this place up." Arlen's pulse quickened. The Dominion's reinforcements were closing in fast. If they didn't make it out soon, they'd all be trapped. He turned to the crew and the Titans. "We don't have much time. Get ready." Suddenly, the room was plunged into darkness as the power flickered and failed for a moment. Then, a pulse of light, blinding and deadly, shot from above, followed by a deafening crack of energy. The Dominion drones around them were blasted apart in a shower of sparks and shredded metal. "Go," Arlen barked, motioning toward the exit. Now, the crew moved in unison, with the Titans leading the charge, cutting down anything that dared to stand in their way. The laser barrage had bought them a few precious moments, but the Dominion wasn't finished yet. The escape route Vay had unlocked was their last chance, if they could get there in time. The war was only beginning. The blast from the laser barrage lit up the chamber, filling it with a fierce, blinding light. For a split second, everything seemed to freeze, both the crew and the Titans caught in the unrelenting power of the weapon. Arlen's heart pounded as he shielded his eyes from the flash, his mind reeling. This was their one chance. If they didn't move now, they'd be wiped out. "Go," he shouted again, his voice raw with urgency. The Titans were already moving, their massive forms surging forward, cutting through the remaining drones with cold, ruthless efficiency. Arlen's crew followed close behind, weapons raised and eyes scanning every shadow. The escape route Vay had unlocked was now their only lifeline. But as they made their way down the narrow corridor toward the breach, the sound of engines filled the air. Arlen's blood ran cold. The Dominion had reinforcements, and they were already deploying. "They're coming," Lyra shouted, her voice tight with panic. "We're not going to make it." "We will make it," Arlen snapped. "Keep moving." Vay was already a few steps ahead, her fingers flying over a handheld terminal as she worked furiously. "The breach is just ahead, but I've detected multiple Dominion dropships in the area. They'll be here in seconds." Calic's eyes narrowed, his Cathuri senses detecting the distant hum of approaching engines. "They're not waiting to corner us. They're coming in hot. We'll have a fight on our hands, but it's not over yet." As the crew sprinted toward the breach point, Arlen could hear the distant roar of the Dominion dropships as they descended. Their sleek, dark forms tore through the sky outside, casting eerie shadows across the crumbling structure. The escape route, the only one left, was just a few meters away. But would they reach it in time? A blast rang out from behind them. A drone, still functional despite the barrage, fired a pulse of energy toward them. It struck the wall just beside Arlen, sending a shower of sparks flying. "Move!" Arlen shouted again, his pulse quickening. The gap between them and the Dominion was closing faster than he had hoped. The breach point appeared ahead, the heavy metal doors sliding open with a groan of old machinery. But as they ran toward it, the ground shook with a force that knocked everyone off balance. Arlen barely managed to catch himself against the wall, his hand brushing the cold metal. "Not good," Vay muttered, her eyes flashing over the terminal in desperation. "They're overriding the door's locks. It's going to take longer to open." The Titans, sensing the impending threat, formed a protective wall around the crew, their weapons drawn, eyes sharp. "We hold them off," the Titan leader said. His voice was calm, but the tension was palpable. "You get to that door. Now." Arlen nodded grimly. "We don't leave anyone behind." With the Titans leading the charge, the crew moved forward, pushing toward the door as it began to crack open. Arlen could hear the heavy thrum of dropship engines getting closer. The Dominion was almost here. They kept her focus, working frantically to keep the escape route open. "I need another minute," Galactic growled, his hand tightening around his blaster. "We don't have a minute." As the final Dominion dropships touched down outside, Arlen's heart raced. He could already see the first wave of enemy soldiers emerging, their dark forms silhouetted against the flashing lights of the wrecked facility. They were too close. Arlen turned to face the Titans. "You have to hold them. Keep them back for as long as you can." Without hesitation, the Titan leader nodded. The remaining Titans split into two groups, their forms moving with deadly precision as they advanced toward the incoming Dominion forces. Arlen could feel the ground tremble underfoot as the Titans collided with the enemy, unleashing untamed fury. They tore through Dominion soldiers like paper, but still, they came. More soldiers, more drones. "Vay!" Arlen shouted, his voice tight. "Hurry!" Vay's fingers trembled on the terminal. Just a few more seconds. A loud explosion rang out from behind them, signaling the arrival of Dominion reinforcements in full force. The ground cracked open as the doors to the breach finally began to widen. "Go!" Vay screamed, pulling herself to her feet. The way's clear. Arlen wasted no time. He surged forward, grabbing Lyra's hand and pulling her into the opening. Galactic followed close behind, and one by one, they dove through the breach. The Titans held the line, their bodies moving with inhuman precision, but it was clear they were outnumbered. The last Titan leader turned to face Arlen. "We've bought you enough time. Go now." Arlen hesitated, but the Titan gave a single solemn nod. With one final glance at the Titans, Arlen bolted through the opening, diving to the ground as the door slammed shut behind them, the heavy sound echoing through the collapsing facility. The last of humanity's legacy had given them the chance to escape, but the war was far from over. They had survived this battle. But would humanity's true strength be enough to turn the tide of the Dominion's unrelenting march? Only time would tell.